Everybody around the country, John, is of the opinion, yes, and that he should be removed. To me, that's also awful impulsive to do anything. And we'll just separate the fact that a great coach like Sean Payton is out there. Is it too soon for them to remove Brandon Staley, or do you need to give him more space to grow and learn? I think I call him a bright light. I think he's a dynamic guy. He's one of the most intellectual coaches I've ever been involved with. I like him a great deal. All coaches go through bumpy roads. All coaches go through, gee, I wish I hadn't done that syndrome. I would not remove him. Now, maybe they need to look. They need to look at Joe Lombardi, the offensive coordinator, because the offense right now is not what the offense was his first year. Maybe they need to look at that. Maybe they need to look at the secondary coach, because those guys have blown too many coverages and allowed too many chunk plays over the back half of the schedule for the second year in a row. So maybe there's an adjustment or two coming in Staley's coaching staff. In terms of Spanos, there's a whole layer of things we need to consider. One, is he going to pay Sean Payton $10 million a year? Because that's the rumor mill around the league from the people I network with, that he wants 6 years, $60 million. He wants full control of the football team. That means all player personnel decisions are at Sean Payton's desk. Spanos historically has been cheap as it relates to paying coaches. And to give full player personnel authority to Sean Payton, is Dean going to walk into the office next door to John Spanos, the president of football operations, and saying, this is no longer your job? I find that one really hard to believe. John Spanos and Tom Telesco are combined 81 and 86. They've only been to the playoffs 3 times in the 10 years that they have been together. I have a hard time thinking Dean would hit the eject button on his kid. There's also draft pick compensation that has to go to New Orleans for whoever hires Sean Payton. Payton's intimated today the draft pick compensation might be as high as a third-round pick. Third-round pick has a lot of value. So is Spanos going to pay the money, remove his kid, pay the compensation, and then give the keys to the entire building to Sean Payton? There's a lot of angles to the story here that he's got to consider. I think there's an intangible thing that needs to be addressed. They've had back-to-back years of horrific injuries. Is it bad luck? Are they just football game injuries? Or is there something not right with how they prepare these players, that all these players keep getting hurt, although injuries are everywhere? If you look at the IR list of teams around the league, it's staggering how many players are hurt. So like I say, there's a lot of different layers that they have to consider. If I were king, I would not fire Brandon Staley. They've pushed this franchise and drafted this roster to the point they're right at the brink of taking the next step. And the next step is the division game. Next step might be the AFC Championship. I think I'd go another year with him, but Brandon Staley's got to do some intensive evaluation of what's around him on his coaching staff, and are they doing all the right things, and the ability to grow and make decisions on the run when they have to make changes, because there's a lot of problems there. Okay, I've espoused all my philosophies. Tell me yours.
So if I'm the Chargers and I have a chance to get Sean Payton, I do it. And I know you got to give up a lot to get him, but this is an opportunity where you have all of this talent. You've got a proven coach, a winning coach. And you just said that the front office is 81 and 86. So, why bother even keeping your president of football operations? This is why nepotism is such a dangerous thing to play around with, because you back yourself into a corner. But if the right thing for the Chargers should do, in my opinion, is get Payton. And that's why they won't do it, because they're the Chargers. They're going to end up doing the wrong thing. And, sure, if you blow out your head coach, you have to start everything over, and it slows down the momentum. You got to build new systems, new culture, everything else. I get that. But Staley has made the mistakes on Saturday. I mean, he left Mike Williams in the game on the final week of the season. I mean, there's been so many boneheaded things that he's done. There's a lot of other coaches out there that can maybe lead this team more adequately.
Tell you what, organizationally, under Spanos in recent times, since John Spanos was named president of football ops, they have hired Mike McCoy who I thought was going to be, as a coordinator, become a pretty good head coach, gone. Hired Anthony Lynn. That didn't work out. Now you're going to eject Brandon Staley after just 2 years on the job. So what does that say about the owner and his football president of operations son, and to a degree, the general manager? You're going to trust these guys to make the right decision? I don't know. Tough. To me, it's a really, really tough call.
Well, I read an article also that there's something going on here with the Rooney Rule could complicate things, because if the Chargers are basically going to hire Payton, then those interviews might just be kind of fake interviews. So I've heard some people say that if they're going to hire a head coach, he has to say he's not going to take Payton, so the black coaches can have a legitimate chance in an interview.
Well, this will be another argument for another time. The Rooney Rule, to me, is a very positive effect. But you are correct. Is there an African-American minority that is going to go through the interview process just so they can check off, I interviewed a couple of blacks,
Right.
minorities? It's a big issue. But at the end of the day, the owners have the right to hire whom they want to hire to run their franchise. I've talked to African-American assistant coaches who've kind of brought that up to me. I don't want to be a token. My response to them is, go through the interview process. You go into that interview and you bring your scouting report on that team and what you think of that team and what you could bring to that team. Even if you don't get the job, you get the experience in the exchange of information with that owner. Maybe that owner doesn't hire you, but maybe there's another opening in another team and he's friends with that owner. He says, you ought to talk to player A or coach A. I talked to coach A. We didn't hire him, but I really liked his approach, his philosophy, et cetera, et cetera. I think you always go through the interview process because you open doors, you meet more people, and you connect this dot to that dot that might lead to a head coaching job down the road. Okay.